All right, guys, we're continuing on with fractions, and this time we're looking at a mixed number times a fraction. So remember, a mixed number is a number that has this whole unit over here, but it also has this fractional part that comes along with it. Now, the biggest trick and the problem that most fifth graders tend to make is they do the 2/3 of 1/3 and then they stop, or they do the 2/3 of the 2 and then they stop. I need to find 2/3 of this whole thing. Now we're going to look at our strategies today, and you can pick which ones are going to make the most sense for you. We're going to start off with the area model. So 2 1/3 times 2/3. So for an area model, let's start by drawing our rectangle. Now, draw it much, much larger this time. So I've got one unit there. I have another unit here, and that makes a third unit here. And I know what you're thinking, but you don't have 3. That's not up here. You're right, I don't. But I do have 2 holes, and I need 1/3 of this piece right here. Okay, so taking a look, I have 1 hole there, 1 hole here, and a third at the end. So that's my 2 1/3. Okay, now I'm multiplying that by 2/3. So let's do this. Now, going across, I need to go ahead and break this up into thirds this way. So I'm finding the area of this. So I'm finding the overlap. So I get this chunk right here is what 2/3 looks like. That's 1/3, and that's 2/3. Now, I'm looking for where it's marked off in both pieces, the overlap, because I only want to find 2/3 of this part. So I'm getting this part right here. That's the 2/3 of it. So let's take a look. I've got several pieces that look like they are thirds. These 4 pieces right here are all thirds. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 thirds there. Okay. Now, down in this last unit right here, these are not thirds. Okay. These are, let's see, broken up into a 3 by 3. So those are ninths. And I have 2 of them that are shaded. So I have plus 2 ninths. Now, when I go to add these together, I can turn this into a mixed number if I want, or I can leave it as is. 4 thirds ends up becoming what? 12 ninths when I change it into an equivalent fraction. So 12 ninths plus the 2 ninths would make 14 ninths. So that's my end answer, unless I need to simplify things down and change it into 1 5 ninths. But that's how it would work for the area model. I personally don't like it very much because to me it starts getting a little more sloppy when you have those holes in there, but that's up to you. All right, now let's try it a different way. Let's go ahead and take a look at what the length model would look like doing it this way. So I need 2 1/3. So that's 1 hole there. That's another one. So that's 2. And down here, that's where I'm breaking it up into thirds. So that's 1/3 right there. Now I have all of this right there. So there's my 2 1/3. Now I'm finding 2/3 of this whole thing. So I'm finding 2/3 of this first part, but I'm also finding 2/3 of these down here. So 2/3 starting off this way. Okay. There's my, what am I doing? There's my shading for this. That's 2/3. Break this one up. Maybe I'll shade it in the opposite direction. There we go. That's 2/3 that way. Now I need 2/3 over here. So let's go ahead and break this up into thirds. I get 1, 2 of them. I'll break this up into thirds, but I get nothing because there's nothing up there. Break this into thirds, and I get nothing there too. So same as last time, these pieces are thirds. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 thirds still. Okay, so picture's a little different, but still getting the same results. Down here, this last unit is broken up into 9 pieces. I've heard this story before, and I get 2 of them, so 2 ninths. Adding those together, we already know we've done this. 4 thirds plus 2 ninths is the exact same thing that we did last time. So I did come up with the exact same answer of what this becomes 14 ninths or 1 5 ninths. Okay, that's our 2 models. Now we're going to take a look at our last way, just doing it with a strict formula. All right, so you want to do a formula. all right, we can do that. The biggest mistake, like we talked about, though, is when you do this, I'm finding 2/3 of all of this, okay? Don't just multiply the fractions together and leave this whole unit right there all by itself, or you've gotten it wrong already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 2 1/3 and I'm going to break it up into its two components, 2 and 1/3. I'm going to multiply both of those by 2/3 because I need to find 2/3 of the whole thing. So I'm doing 2 times 2/3, and I'm also doing 1/3 times 2/3. When I'm done with each of these pieces, I'll add them together to see what it makes. So we've already worked on this before. We know when you do a whole number times a fraction, you're only doing the numerator because that's what's getting doubled there. So I've got 4/3. There you go, very familiar. Now over here, I'm doing 1/3 times 2/3. 1 times 2, we're just going straight across, is 2. 3 times 3 is 9. So what a surprise, we end up with 4/3 and 2/9, which, like we've seen multiple times, this is the same thing as 12/9, and this is 2/9, which altogether makes 14/9. So any of these three strategies will give you the correct answer if you do them correctly. They all have things that are good about them. They all have things that are bad about them. You've got to go through and figure out which strategy is going to be the most effective for you. Area model is good if you were good with the area. If you get confused because there's too much stuff, having one number on top of another number, the length model might be the best thing for you. And last, if you are really good at simplifying and seeing the numbers, just doing the straight equation might be the best for you. So when you're working today, think about what will work best for you. Choose the one that you think will work.